Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just am very interested in this. I mean, these are three mergers and somebody said it, my only concern is that it's kind of happening at the same time, and that is a little disconcerting with regard to its impact on the industry. These are going to end up being about $120 billion, $130 billion market cap enterprises if these go through. But in 2014, China became the largest economy in the world when you adjust for PPP. It was not a moment in time that many people spoke about, but today, when you adjust for purchasing power parity, China has the largest economy in the world. We're no longer the 800-pound gorilla economically that everybody thinks we still are. That has tremendous implications worldwide and emphasizes why we have to address how our tax code and our regulations have cost America its competitive edge and its economic leadership. With that, I've got a question on the Monsanto. I don't have time for questions on all these deals. I wish we did. I've sat in this committee for a year and a half listening to legal jargon. Now we're talking about a business issue, and I'm very interested in getting to some of the answers here. Dr. Fraley and Mr. Blum, the deal that you're talking about will create somewhere around $120 to $130 billion market cap company. What's the breakdown? Not in detail, but is this an economic deal or is this a tax synergy deal? I mean, it looks to me like when Monsanto and Syngenta were trying to do this a year ago, when I looked at that deal, there were a lot of economic synergies. I got that. But Mr. Fairwell, where was the corporate headquarters when Monsanto and Syngenta were trying to do that? Where was the anticipated corporate headquarters going to be in that deal? It's hypothetical now, of course, but what was the plan at that point?
I believe that there were discussions about London.
Right. London is in the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom in 2009 reduced their corporate tax rate from 28 to 18. They immediately got rid of their repatriation tax. When I lived in France in the 70s and 80s, London was the most expensive place in the world to do business. It was not a mecca for corporate headquarters. Today, at that time, $100 billion plus merger was going to end up with its corporate headquarters moving from St. Louis to London. That raises a lot of concerns we don't have time to get to. It looks like the Monsanto deal with Bayer will reduce today. Monsanto's effective tax rate, Dr. Fraley, I believe, is about 28%. Is that correct? Correct. And anticipated that effective tax rate will drop by some 800 basis points. Is that directionally correct?
You'd have to answer that, Jim. I'm not aware of that.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's directionally correct. If it's not, would you put it in the record for us? I'd rather it be your testimony than mine. Sure. But I think we're directionally correct. So that's around, and it's not of the total revenues, but that's about $2 billion, right, in terms of tax synergy in this deal, as opposed to economic synergy.
I would like to address that this is not a tax inversion deal.
No, I didn't say inversion. I never used the word inversion. I'm just trying to decide. I'm trying to understand why two large companies that already have scale. I mean, we're talking about 40 and $60 billion companies, and I want to get to the regulatory implications of how long it takes. 13 years for biotech registrations, 11 years to get crop protection products to market. The cost is 136, 286. Those are industry numbers. I get that. You've already put that in the testimony. But I want to understand the tax implication of a deal like Monsanto, where we have two countries across two borders, and one of those borders is a U.S. border. It's the only merger up here where we're talking about that. And I'd like to know the breakdown for the record of how much of that is economic and how much is driven by our archaic tax laws.
I'm not aware of any analysis that's based on the tax laws as a synergy.
Oh, I assure you, your CFO of Bayer, and I assure you your CFO have those numbers. And I'd like to request that for the record, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Next, in terms of I'm going to run out of time, so Dr. Fraley, again, I think you can address this question. Talk to us about the fact that 70% of Southeast cottonseed market will now be controlled by this new merged entity. Now, look, I'm all over the fact that regulations are somewhat causing the drive to do this. I get that. Absorbing R&D cost, I get that as well. I'm also a little skeptical because, frankly, these are already large companies that have scale. So I'm also now very concerned about what impact it's going to have on our markets in particular. So the one I'm most concerned about is the 70% of cottonseed market, and you know cotton farmers are really getting whipsawed right now because of commodity prices. Talk to us about how I should address those concerns.
Well,
with my-
thank you for both for your questions and concerns. So at the high level, you asked about the rationale for the transaction. These are complementary companies that have very different R&D programs. Ours are seeds and traits and data science, and Bayer operates in crop chemicals. So one of the attractions is that the deal has very little overlap. One of those areas that will certainly get focused that you point out is in cotton.
So
And-
before you get to cotton, can I ask a follow-up question on that? So if there's no overlap, where's the synergy of absorption of R&D cost?
Well, to be really clear, this is a deal based on innovation and creating more investment. And I think that's key because it's investing in more R&D that drives innovation.
But help me
creates
understand,
more
I'm sorry to
products.
be argumentative here, but at a $40 billion company, what percentage of your revenues are R&D?
We spend about $1.5 billion a year in R&D, which is about 10% of our sales.
And what does Bayer spend?
Bayer spends globally on crop science $1.1 billion.
Okay, so, and the last question real quick, I want your answer on cottonseed, but how many American jobs will be moved offshore if this merger goes through?
Well, one of the things that attracted us so much in the proposal that Bayer provided was that our St. Louis headquarters will become the North American headquarters for the business and for research. So, as I mentioned earlier, we've just expanded our research facility in St. Louis, and I expect this will be key. If you draw that 500-mile circle around St. Louis, you have about 80% of U.S. agriculture.
Right.
So it's a key and opportune location for the headquarters.
I interrupted your answer on cottonseed, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. Can I get him to finish that question?
Can you
Sorry.
answer that shortly? He wants to ask about cottonseed.
No, I've already answered. I interrupted him. I apologize. I appreciate your forbearance.
Yeah, so on cottonseed, I was simply making the point that, the combination has very little overlap. Clearly, cotton will be an area of focus. As you know, when Monsanto acquired Delta Pineland back in the mid-2000s, the Justice Department, we had a consent decree to divest the business. For me, I've had a lot of experience and, frankly, a lot of confidence in the regulatory system. I think it worked then. The Stoneville business was very strong, and I expect as we go through this extensive regulatory review that process will work again.
Thank you.
Senator Durbin.